There's something quietly heartbreaking about realizing that not everyone around you is rooting for you. The people you've trusted the most, the ones you've shared your dreams, your fears, your breakthroughs with might not be clapping for you as loudly as you thought. Not every smile hides support. Sometimes, it hides silent resentment, fear, or discomfort with the person you're becoming. And that's a truth most of us spend years avoiding. Imagine your life as a performance. Every day you step onto the stage, improving, failing, rising, becoming. But have you ever looked out into the audience and wondered who's sitting in your front row? Who's watching you closely, feeling every moment with you? Are they people who truly believe in your story? Or are they the ones who secretly hope you forget your lines, who wait for you to stumble so they can say, "I told you so"? It's a hard truth to swallow, but necessary. We give front row access to people who drain us emotionally, who project their own fears onto our dreams, and who pretend to support us while quietly hoping we stay stuck. They might not be outright cruel. In fact, they often come wrapped in the softness of familiarity. But just because someone's been around a long time doesn't mean they still deserve a front seat in your journey. There's a strange comfort in staying close to those who've known us the longest, even when they no longer see us clearly. Some of these people fell in love with an earlier version of us, the one who doubted, who stayed quiet, who needed constant reassurance. That version made them feel safe, maybe even important. But now that we're growing into our voice, our purpose, our strength, they don't know how to handle the shift. And rather than grow with us, they try to keep us small. Think about it. How many times have you shared a bold idea or exciting goal with someone, only to have your excitement slowly drained by their cautious, doubtful response? They didn't say no outright. They said things like, "Are you sure?" Or, "That's kind of risky." And suddenly, what felt like a fire in your chest now feels like smoke. You start second-guessing yourself, not because the dream changed, but because their reaction planted a seed of hesitation in your mind. What you need to understand is that not all discouragement is obvious. Some of it comes disguised as love, as just being realistic, as concern. But underneath, it's about their own discomfort. Your growth threatens their comfort zone. Your courage reminds them of everything they've postponed. And instead of rising with you, they try to keep you on their level, not out of malice, but because they're afraid of being left behind. This is the silent sabotage that kills more dreams than failure ever could. When the people closest to you constantly question your ideas, when they always seem to doubt your next move, when they only show up when you're struggling, not when you're winning, that's not support, that's control, and it's costing you more than you realize. Some people only feel secure when you stay insecure. They thrive when you're doubting yourself, when you keep asking them for approval, when you need their permission, because your dependency feeds their sense of worth. But the moment you start standing tall, the moment you begin making decisions without asking them first, they feel the shift and they don't like it. That's when the resistance begins. Subtle, sometimes even passive-aggressive, but very real. The truth is, growth is uncomfortable not just for you, but for those around you. When you start healing, aiming higher, and pursuing your purpose, you disrupt the dynamics. You start showing up differently, setting boundaries, asking for more, and suddenly, people who once felt safe in your life now feel threatened. And you need to be brave enough to acknowledge that, to say, "I love you, but you can't sit this close to me anymore." Not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you, and that's okay. Reassigning someone's seat in your life doesn't make you cold-hearted. It makes you intentional. Think about how much energy you've spent explaining your dreams to people who will never understand them. How many hours you've wasted seeking approval from those who never believed in you in the first place. How often you've shrunk yourself to stay digestible for people who were never meant to fully see you. It's exhausting. And worse, it's delaying your purpose. You don't owe your dreams to anyone. You don't have to make others comfortable with your growth before you allow yourself to move forward. Some people only see you through the lens of who you used to be. They don't recognize the work you've done, the pain you've processed, the boldness you've stepped into. And that's fine, but don't let their limited view of you become your own. If you feel lighter when you stop sharing things with someone, that's a sign. If your confidence grows when you stop asking a certain person's opinion, pay attention. If your vision starts feeling clearer when you set boundaries, that's not a coincidence, it's confirmation. Your energy speaks louder than words. It knows who's helping you rise and who's quietly hoping you fall. You don't have to cut people off with a dramatic exit, but you do need to protect your front row. Not everyone deserves full access to your evolving self. Not everyone should be there to witness your transformation. Save that space for the ones who clap even when you win without them, for the ones who remind you who you are when you forget, for those rare few who support your becoming, not just your being. Your story is sacred, your purpose is personal, and your life is not a free-for-all. Be wise with who gets to sit close. Be bold enough to make space from those who don't celebrate you. Be loving enough to let go without guilt. And above all, be faithful to the version of you that you're still growing into. Because if you keep handing front row seats to people who tear down the stage, you'll never have the peace to perform your purpose. This is your life, your moment, your story. Choose your audience carefully. It often starts with a compliment, a soft, warm sentence that sounds like support. I'm so proud of you, they say. You're doing great things. But then comes the pause, the hesitation, the tightening in their tone. Just don't go too far, they add. You don't want to make a mistake. And just like that, the support starts to crack in control, quietly slips in through the gap. Most people never notice it. They confuse this kind of language for care, for concern, even for love. But hidden beneath those well-meaning words is a truth that's hard to face. Not all encouragement is genuine. Sometimes, the people closest to you wear the mask of support, while using their words to keep you small, tame, and manageable. And the scariest part? It often works. We've been conditioned to trust the voices that love us. We assume that anyone who claims to care must also want the best for us. But wanting the best for you and wanting what they think is best for you are two very different things. And that's where the illusion begins. It's not always about what they say, it's about what they don't say. The energy behind the words, the silent judgment, the invisible leash. You share a dream, and they smile. But their eyes say something else. They tilt their head, they shift uncomfortably. They respond with words like, just be careful, or don't get ahead of yourself. On the surface, it sounds reasonable, but if you listen closely, you'll hear the message underneath. Don't outgrow what I'm comfortable with. Don't become someone I can't control. Control doesn't always show up as a demand. Sometimes, it shows up in the form of conditional support. They're proud of you as long as your success still fits their idea of who you should be. They're happy for you as long as you still make time for their needs. They encourage your journey as long as it doesn't take you too far away from them. And if you start to break out of that mold, their support begins to shift into subtle resistance. Have you ever noticed how some people celebrate your growth only up to a point? As long as you're doing just a little better, they cheer. But the moment you take a leap, quit the job, start the business, chase the dream, their energy changes. Suddenly, they start questioning your choices, warning you, cautioning you, but not from a place of wisdom, no. From a place of fear, not yours, theirs. They fear losing the version of you that once leaned on them. They fear becoming irrelevant in your new world. They fear being left behind. And instead of saying, I'm afraid, they say, I'm just looking out for you. It sounds kind, even selfless, but it's a lie they've told themselves to feel better about holding you back. This isn't always intentional. Sometimes, people don't even realize they're doing it. They believe they're helping. They believe their caution is kindness. But deep down, it's their own unhealed wounds speaking. Their own fears projecting. They've never dared to step into the unknown, so when you do, it triggers everything inside them that stayed small. You can always tell the difference between real support and masked control by how people respond to your bravery. Real supporters get excited when you take risks. They may worry, but they trust your intuition. They believe in your ability to figure it out. They don't need you to follow a safe path to feel secure in your relationship, because they don't attach their identity to your choices. But masked supporters, they need you to stay predictable, safe, dependent, because when you evolve, it forces them to ask questions about their own life, and that's a mirror many people don't want to look into. So instead, they cling tighter. Their advice becomes more frequent, their concern more intense. It's not about love anymore, it's about power. And here's where the damage happens. When this disguised control comes from people you deeply love, parents, siblings, best friends, it's even harder to see. We don't expect manipulation from our inner circle, So we defend it, we justify it. They're just protective, we say. They don't understand. And while that may be partially true, it doesn't make the impact any less painful, because slowly, you start to dim your light around them. You filter your words. You edit your joy. You stop sharing big plans because you already know what the reaction will be. It's not hatred. It's not abuse. But it's control. Wrapped in love. And that's one of the most dangerous kinds. It tricks you into thinking you're being supported, when really, you're being managed. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their limitations for your own. You'll start setting your goals based on what they think you can handle. You'll start aiming lower, moving slower, doubting more. Not because you lack courage, but because you've been surrounded by voices that only allow you to grow within their comfort zone. There's nothing more soul-crushing than being half-celebrated, than knowing that someone is proud of you only when it doesn't make them uncomfortable, then realizing that your success is quietly monitored, not wholeheartedly embraced. And the worst part? You still love them. You still want to make them proud, so you start shrinking to stay loved. But let me tell you something. Any love that demands your silence, your shrinking, your submission isn't love. It's control. No matter how sweet it sounds, no matter how long you've known them, no matter how many birthdays you've shared or tears you've cried together. If their support comes with strings, it's not real. It's a performance. You don't need that kind of support anymore. You've outgrown the need for approval that costs you your authenticity. You've outgrown the illusion that says love must mean agreement. You can love people and still reject their limitations. You can honor your past with them while protecting your future from them. That's not betrayal, it's maturity. So what do you do when you recognize this illusion? First, you stop arguing. You stop trying to convince them to see you differently. You stop begging them to understand your path, because your purpose doesn't need their permission. Your dreams don't require their comprehension. They're yours. You were chosen for them, not them. And not everyone will get it. They're not supposed to. Next, you create space, not distance, fueled by anger, but space filled with boundaries. You start sharing less. You stop handing over emotional access to those who misuse it. You start protecting your energy like it's sacred because it is. You learn to grow without seeking applause, to rise without validation, to shine even when they look away. Eventually, something powerful happens. You begin attracting real supporters, people who clap the loudest when you win, who challenge you to stretch higher, who remind you that you're capable, not just comfortable. These people don't just encourage, they expand you. And when you meet them, you'll realize how heavy the illusion was all along. You'll wonder how you ever called that control support, how you ever let it dictate your worth, how many versions of yourself you buried just to be loved in return. But don't let regret steal this moment, because now you know. And awareness is the first step toward freedom. You don't need to hate anyone to heal. You don't need revenge or confrontation. You just need clarity. Clarity about who really walks beside you, and who only walks with the version of you they can control. That clarity will change everything. It'll give you permission to reclaim your space, to trust your own voice, to stop asking for directions on a road they've never walked. It's not your job to stay small so others feel big. It's not your job to explain your courage to people afraid of their own. And it's definitely not your job to mistake control for care just because it comes in a familiar voice. You were not born to live inside someone else's version of safety. You were born to stretch, to rise, to evolve even if it makes others uncomfortable. And the moment you see the illusion for what it is, you are no longer trapped by it. You are free. There's a quiet kind of prison that no one talks about. It doesn't have bars or guards. It doesn't lock you up with keys or chains. In fact, it doesn't look like a prison at all. It looks like home. It sounds like love. It feels like comfort. And yet it keeps you stuck, frozen, small. This prison is built not from hatred, but from familiarity. And the scariest part? Most people never even realize they're in it. It's called a comfortable cage. You grow up surrounded by certain people, your family, your closest friends, your community. They raise you, shape you, love you. They teach you the rules, what's right, what's safe, and how the world works. And because their presence feels familiar, you trust them. You believe what they say. You absorb their fears, their dreams, their limitations as if they are your own. And at first, it feels fine. It feels warm. You're part of something. You're seen. You're accepted. But then something begins to shift. Maybe you start asking questions they don't have answers to. Maybe you feel a hunger inside you that they don't understand. Maybe you begin to dream bigger than your surroundings allow. And slowly, the comfort becomes suffocating. You want to grow, but you're afraid. Not because you don't believe in yourself, but because you know growth might make the people around you uncomfortable. You know that chasing that dream, speaking your truth, or choosing a different path might upset the delicate balance of your familiar relationships. So, you hold back, you wait, you delay your own evolution for the sake of keeping the peace. That is the cage. Not built from cruelty, but from fear. Not enforced by enemies, but by loved ones. And the longer you stay inside it, the more you convince yourself that it's safer this way. At least I'm not alone, you think. At least I'm not disappointing anyone. But deep down, your spirit knows. It knows you're meant for more. It knows you're shrinking. It knows this comfort is coming at a cost. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. Not everyone who loves you wants you to grow. It's not because they're evil. It's because your growth threatens the structure they've grown comfortable with. The version of you that made them feel secure, important, needed that version is evolving, and that scares them. So instead of cheering for your wings, they remind you how dangerous it is to fly. They say things like, "Are you sure you're ready for that?" People like us don't do things like that. What if it doesn't work out? Just be grateful for what you have. And while those words may sound like concern, they're actually chains designed to keep you inside the world they understand. They're not talking to the real, current version of you. They're talking to the old version, the one who stayed small, silent, safe. But that version isn't you anymore. You've changed. You've outgrown the cage. And now, you're starting to feel the ache of that misfit. There's a moment in every person's life where they have to choose comfort or calling. Comfort is easy. It doesn't challenge anything. It allows you to blend in, to be accepted, to stay liked. But calling? That's different. Your calling will disrupt things. It will make people uncomfortable. It will push you into unfamiliar spaces where you may be misunderstood, judged, even rejected. But your calling will also set you free. You were not born to live a life that only makes sense to other people. You were born to live the life that sets your soul on fire even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And yes, that might cost you relationships. It might create distance. But you have to ask yourself, what's the real cost of staying in the cage? How many dreams will die inside you because you were afraid to be misunderstood? You see, growth is a threat to systems built on predictability. When you change, you force people to either evolve with you or lose access to you. That's why they resist your transformation. It's not about you, it's about the fear of losing control, the fear of being left behind, the fear that they too might need to change. But here's the part they don't understand. Your growth is not a betrayal. Your healing is not disrespect. Your decision to chase more is not a rejection of their love. It's a reclamation of your life. And you don't owe anyone your imprisonment just because they once felt safe inside your silence. Some of the hardest decisions you'll ever make will involve choosing between what's familiar and what's right for your soul. But if you keep choosing familiarity over freedom, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. You'll spend your life decorating the cage instead of breaking out of it. You'll keep adjusting yourself to fit the expectations of people who don't even know who you really are. You'll silence your voice so others don't feel uncomfortable. You'll dim your light so they can shine. And little by little, you'll begin to disappear from your own life. But it doesn't have to be that way. There comes a point where you have to be honest with yourself first. You have to stop pretending the cage is a castle. You have to stop calling comfort love when it's actually control. You have to stop waiting for permission to become who you already know you're meant to be. No one is coming to unlock that door for you. You have to break it open. You have to walk away from the voices that only love the version of you that's convenient. You have to choose the unknown over the unbearable. Because while the cage might feel safe, it will never give you peace. Real peace comes from living in alignment with your truth. From waking up every day knowing that you are not faking, not performing, not pretending. From standing in your power even when your voice shakes. From walking away from people who only offer love with strings attached. Yes, it will be hard. You might lose people. You might spend some nights alone, wondering if you made a mistake. But listen to me closely. You will gain yourself. And there is no relationship more important than the one you have with your own spirit. The people who truly love you will adapt. They may not understand at first, but they'll respect your journey. They'll learn to love the new version of you. The real ones will clap from a distance if they have to. They'll root for you even when your growth makes them uncomfortable. And the ones who don't? They were only with you for who you were, not who you are becoming. And that's okay. Everyone has their role. Some people were meant to be chapters, not the whole book. Some relationships were meant to teach you boundaries, not break them. Some cages were meant to be escaped. And once you leave that cage, something incredible begins to happen. You start to meet people who see you, who don't flinch at your power, who don't ask you to be smaller, who don't get threatened by your glow. They encourage your light, they fuel your fire, they help you rise. You start to build a new tribe of truth, of purpose, of real connection. And with them, you don't have to hide. You don't have to wear masks. You don't have to perform. You just be, fully, authentically, loudly, and in that space, your soul breathes. You realize how heavy the cage really was, how much energy it took to stay small, how many years you spent living half alive, afraid of your own power, and you promise yourself, never again. Never again will you apologize for growing. Never again will you shrink to stay loved. Never again will you mistake comfort for connection. You choose freedom. You choose truth. You choose the discomfort of growth over the numbness of staying stuck. Because this is your life, and you only get one. Don't let it be defined by people who are afraid to live theirs. They rarely look like enemies. In fact, the most dangerous people to your dreams are often the ones who hug you when you cry, who text you, "I'm proud of you," on your birthdays, and who say they're always there for you. You trust them. You value their opinions. You believe that when you grow, they'll grow with you. But then comes the moment you decide to step forward, to do something bold, unexpected, life-changing. You share your plan, your dream, your excitement, and instead of the cheer you were expecting, you hear hesitation, a pause, a tilt of the head, a glance that says, "You sure about this?" A sentence dressed in care but dripping with fear. "Just think it through, okay? It's risky. It seems harmless, maybe even loving, but that one line becomes the seed of doubt. Not because you're not strong, but because it came from someone you trusted. We don't always realize how deeply other people's voices live inside our minds, especially the ones we hold close. They shape our worldview, our decisions, our definition of possible, and that's exactly why they're so dangerous. Not because they hate you, but because they fear for you. And in doing so, they end up projecting their fear onto your future. Sometimes, it's your parents. You tell them you want to start your own business, or move to another country, or pursue a path that doesn't come with a stable salary, and their faces drop. They don't scream, they don't say you're foolish. They say, "We just want you to be safe, secure." They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect you from a world they never learned to conquer. But you weren't born to repeat their limitations. Sometimes, it's your closest friend. You confide in them, share your next big step. Maybe it's writing a book, quitting your job, starting a new career, leaving a toxic relationship. They smile, but it's uneasy. They listen, but they don't lean in. They offer support, but it's laced with warnings. "It's a big move," they say. "Just be careful." They mean well, but the damage is done. Your energy dips, your excitement falters. You walk away from the conversation not feeling lighter but heavier. These people, these silent saboteurs, don't use weapons. They don't use insults. They don't need to. Their tool is subtle, hesitation, a tone of concern, a single story of someone who failed, and because you love them, you believe them. You put your bold decision on hold. You start second-guessing yourself. You delay. You stall. You retreat into the safety of the familiar. This is how it happens. Not with fire, but with fog. You don't even realize you've abandoned your dream. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time. You say you need to do more research. You convince yourself that patience is maturity, but deep down you know, you were ready. You just let someone else's fear become your compass. And the worst part? They won't even know they stopped you. They'll go on with their lives, proud of you for being responsible, unaware that the fire inside you is dimming every day. Meanwhile, you carry the quiet ache of what could have been. You start watching others do what you were planning to do. You see people succeed in the very field you were scared to step into. And it hurts not because you hate them, but because deep inside, you know you could have done it too. The only thing that stopped you was trust misplaced. But here's the truth. Not everyone you love is qualified to advise your future. Not everyone who cares for you understands your calling. And not everyone who listens deserves the power to influence your next move. Their fear is not your destiny. Their version of safety is not your freedom. Their smallness is not your ceiling. It's a hard truth to swallow that sometimes the people you'd take a bullet for are the very ones holding the gun to your ambition. Not out of cruelty, but out of their own limitations. And unless you recognize it, their voices will continue to echo louder than your own. So what do? You begin by creating distance, not always physically, but emotionally. You start filtering advice. You stop sharing your boldest dreams with people who can't handle their size. You protect your vision like a flame in the wind, sheltering it until it's strong enough to light up the world. You build a new voice, one that's your own, one that believes even when no one claps, one that says, "It's okay if they don't get it, I do," because that's the voice that will carry you when everyone else walks away. You learn to stand alone, not forever but long enough to prove to yourself that you can. And in that solitude, something beautiful happens. You begin to hear your own heartbeat again, your own desires, your own fire. And once you reconnect with that, you become unstoppable. Let this be a moment of reckoning. Ask yourself, how many decisions have I avoided because someone I trusted didn't believe in me? How many dreams have I shrunk because someone I loved felt uncomfortable with my expansion? How many times have I called it being realistic, when in truth, I was just scared to disappoint people who were already disappointed in themselves? You don't need to confront them. You don't need to fight them. You need to release them from the responsibility of guiding your path. Free them, thank them, and then move on. Because life is short, and you've waited long enough. You've delayed your book, your brand, your message, your move. You've silenced yourself to stay loyal to people who wouldn't dare be that brave for you. But now it's time. Time to make the decision without the group vote. Time to choose growth over comfort. Time to trust the one voice that actually knows what you're capable of. Yours. You were never meant to play small. And every second you spend trying to convince others that your dream is valid is a second you steal from its fulfillment. So go, be bold, let them talk, let them doubt, let them worry. But don't let them stop you. Your bold decision doesn't need a blessing, it just needs your belief. There comes a time in every person's life where silence becomes suffocating. It's not the silence around you, it's the silence within. The quiet pause between wanting more and actually doing something about it. The stillness of waiting, of overthinking, of letting the world dictate your worth while your inner voice grows fainter each day. That's not peace. That's permission slowly being handed over to fear. And maybe that's where you are right now. You feel it, don't you? That gap between who you are and who you know you could be. That ache, that restlessness, that undeniable truth that you were not born for the life you're settling for. You've heard it whispering in quiet moments after a long day, before you fall asleep, when you look in the mirror and barely recognize the version of you staring back. That whisper is your voice, your real one. And you've ignored it long enough. The problem is, for too long, you've been tuning into the wrong station, listening to voices that don't know your potential, people who don't understand your heart, expectations that were never yours to begin with. Somewhere along the way, you confused loud with right. You started thinking that because someone was confident, they were correct. That because they were older, they were wiser. That because they cared, they were capable of guiding your path. But they weren't, and they aren't. Because your life is not a reflection of what others see, it's a mirror of the voice you obey. If that voice is fear, your life will be small. If that voice is comfort, your life will be predictable. If that voice is doubt, your life will be filled with almosts, maybes, and regrets. But if that voice is yours, the real one, the bold one, the one you've silenced for years because it didn't fit into their narrative, then your life becomes something else entirely. It becomes yours. Think about how many decisions you've made just to keep others comfortable. Think about how many dreams you've buried because someone told you they were too much. Think about all the times you waited for permission that was never going to come. And now ask yourself this: how much longer are you willing to live like that? This is the moment, the break in the cycle fork in the road where everything changes if you let it. You don't need another opinion. You don't need another plan. You don't need someone to clap for you. You need to listen to yourself. To the version of you that's been patiently waiting, screaming in silence, aching to breathe. It's time to shut out the noise and reconnect with your power. That power is not somewhere out there. It's not in a podcast. It's not in a self-help book. It's not in your friend's approval or your parents' blessing. It's in you, in your decisions, in your energy. In the moment you finally say, I've had enough. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm done apologizing for wanting more. Because when your voice gets louder than your fear, everything changes. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, show up differently. Not because the world accepts you, but because you've accepted yourself. And when you do that, when you trust your voice over their noise, you become unstoppable. You don't just change your life, you take it back. You begin to build a life that looks like you, feels like you, breathes with your truth. A life where boldness replaces permission, where purpose replaces approval, where the only voice that matters is the one inside that says, go. And now it's your turn. Not next year, not when it's perfect, not when they understand. Now. This is your call to action, not a suggestion, not a maybe. A command from the deepest part of who you are. You already know what to do. You already know what needs to change. The question isn't if you're ready, it's will you finally listen? Because the life you want isn't waiting for more time. It's waiting for a braver version of you. So take the leap, make the move, speak the truth. End what needs ending. Begin what's begging to be born. Choose you, and don't look back.